June 6th, 1944. And the world holds its breath as Allied troops land on the beaches of Normandy to face the onslaught of the fascist Nazis. Welcome to World War II in the eyes of the beholder. In this episode, we'll be talking about the invasion beach of Omaha, 1944. After the amphibious invasion of Sicily in July 1944, the Allies began to realize that amphibious warfare is indeed possible. US President FDR and English Prime Minister Winston Churchill began to start looking for ways to break the Atlantic Wall, meaning that you can just waltz right into Berlin, and more importantly, Hitler. In early 1943, the Allies start planning an amphibious assault somewhere in Europe. The Allies choose France, just a couple miles from Dunkirk. If you remember right, Dunkirk was where the French and British troops were stuck when Germany invaded Europe and France in early 1940. The Allies knew that they had to hit the Atlantic Wall head-on to relieve the troops in Italy. But knowing that this would cause many lives, they devised a plan. The Allies made a huge fake military camp, sort of hiding in the woods of England. This, along with the intentional wrong radio traffic, the Axis thought that the Allies would land near Calais, which is up top, a couple hundred miles from Normandy. Therefore, the Axis drew troops away from Normandy and other notifications and closer to Calais. Most people do not know, but on August 19, 1942, the Allies, mostly Britain and the UK, landed on the port of Dieppe on the French coastline. This failed bad. Because of this, the Allies learned how to improve and how to lose less men, like heavier bombardment and bigger guns that could break concrete pillboxes. The big picture. To learn more about these landing beaches, the Allies sent many reconnaissance planes and even a few tactical groups to get pictures and collect sand samples. Yes, a tactical group was sent to get sand samples to see if the sand was favorable to heavy tanks and vehicles, which the sands of Dieppe were not. As for the planes, over 3,200 pictures were taken. Most often, these planes were flying extremely low to get pictures of German defenses. The French resistance also helped a lot. They took pictures, got numbers of guards and German units, and laid mines and took over heavy guns on the outskirts of Normandy. The French resistance also helped hide the Allied airborne troops that dropped on June 5th, the day before the landing. The plan was to land around 160,000 men really close together. These men would try to take objectives such as taking key ports, villages close by, and destroying huge cannons that could destroy Allied ships. Taking these ports would allow more men and supplies to get inland and help with the fight. On the night of the 5th, airborne units would take off early in the morning. These units would take out key sites, cannons, and mainly clear the way for the huge assault that would happen the next day. After taking the beaches, the men and airborne units would unite and march to the city of Sienne. That would be the first major objective of the taking of Normandy. This was supposed to happen the same day as landing on the beach. From there, they would wait for reinforcements and keep marching to Berlin. Along with the troops in Italy and Russia, troops coming from the west, Berlin would be crushed with nowhere to run. New technologies. To track these beaches, the Allies needed to overcome some problems, such as getting men and equipment to shores to help the men fighting the Germans. To overcome this problem, engineers built mulberry harbors. These are huge floating docks that you tie together, and they allow supplies to get ashore pretty much on the bridge. Another problem was getting fuel to the tanks and equipment in France, and so the Allies devised a plan. The Allies started Operation PLUTO, Operation Pipeline Under the Ocean, or Pluto. This would allow fuel and oil to get to France quick. So 3-inch pipes were laid under the British Canal by D-Day plus 18, or June 24th. Speaking of tanks, the Allies also constructed floaties for the tanks that would be brought ashore on the Normandy beaches. These were mostly attached to M4 Shermans and the Churchill model tanks. Operation Fortitude. I talked a little bit about the espionage earlier in this video, and we'll be covering that in depth now. Operation Fortitude was the operation of faking the Germans to think that amphibious assault was going to be on Calais. This operation included tanks made of canvas and wood, fake LTVs and other sea vessels, and wood planes. Also, many tents were put up and lights were strung to give the look of a huge military emplacement. All of this was camouflaged, but badly camouflaged, mostly to make it seem that they were hiding something, even though the Germans could easily see it. Also, over 30 fake radio channels were created to spread false news and information about the attack on Calais. And this worked great. The Germans started to move their equipment to the beaches of Calais, making the Normandy beaches less fortified, even though these beaches still cost over 6,000 lives. Operation Overlord training. Most people do not know this, but the training for the invasion may have started as early as July 1943. Over 11 months from when the invasion was planned. But a lot of training had to occur. The men needed to learn how to destroy pillboxes, get over sandbars, and get out of the LTVs ASAP. The LTV crews needed to practice getting faster and unloading, getting everything off of their boat, and back to the ships for more men and supplies. The airborne units needed to learn how to jump, what to do in certain occasions. All of this training happened on the main island of England. The training site was in the north, miles and miles away from the beaches of Normandy. The training site was north, miles and miles away from the fake training sites of Operation Fortitude. These men practiced on beaches much like the beaches of Normandy. These beaches were equipped with all the fun German toys that, the Germans had on the real beaches, but these were less lethal. The training was still very hard. So hard that men died in just the training. On just April 27th, 1944, friendly fire resulted in over 450 deaths. But may I remind you, these men trained with live rounds and live grenades, bombs, and mines. The Navy crews practiced off the shores of Ireland, and the airborne units did many practice drops in many different locations. What time? The weather was very important in this invasion. Professionals said that only 3 to 4 days in the entire month, any month, was suitable for the landings. There were many expectations, such as a full moon, so that air crews could see their drop zones and targets. As for the time, the Allies picked early in the morning, around 6:30 a.m. This time was picked because the men charging the beaches would be able to see the mines and boat obstacles. This also would provide some cover. They also wanted the tide to be coming in. Yes, this would mean that wounded men would be swept out or even drowned, but this forced the remaining or well enough to fight men to force on and push forward, instead of just sitting behind a sandbar. So the day of June 5th was picked for the invasion. Enemy power. What did the Germans have? The Germans prepared well. Over 50 divisions defended just the shores of France, along with 15 reserve divisions and men in Denmark and Norway. 2 SS divisions and multiple Panzer and heavy Panzer divisions, and around 5,000 aircrafts waited for the Allies. Yeah. As for the beaches, most of them started out with mines and tanks and ship obstacles. After this, you would head up the beach. There would be a sandbar with more mines and barbed wire waiting for you. After that, most of the beaches had hills or cliffs. Atop of these were many trenches, pillboxes, mortars, cannons, and MG-42s. In the open fields beyond Normandy, big booby traps, holes were placed to prevent bomber, gliding, and glider landings. But after the threat on Calais by the Allied Operation Fortitude, Erwin Rommel ordered all the mines on the French coast to be tripled. June 5th, 1944. On June 5th, 1944, D-Day -1, the weather conditions were considered not favorable for heavy winds and huge waves were expected to occur. So even though the invasion was ready, it was postponed 24 hours. Luckily, on the night of June 5th, the weather changed and the invasion was put on for the next day. I'll see you in the next video.